Welcome to the week 3 go-to session. This is the third session we're holding this month, and as promised, this will be entirely about APA, so thanks for showing up. Hang in there. I can't promise this will be the sexiest lecture of the month, but it might be the most useful, especially if you're not entirely sure how APA operates. I'll be going through all aspects of APA in real time. But first, let me just, okay, so we've got the list of activities here, right? So here we are in week 3. Just like other weeks, you've got another weekly journal response where you show that you watched this lecture and complete the readings. Another Achieve module. That's the last one of the month, actually. And then the main assignment is this guy here, okay, which is the essay draft. I know it has a different title, Step 3, Composing with Care, but it's really just the essay draft. As always, you can read through the instructions on your own, but I don't have much to say here because quite literally, you're taking your outline, and I'm still grading the outline, so you need my feedback first. But you'll make changes based on my feedback if needed, and then you're going to, sit down and create a draft of the essay. You can read through these bulleted points on your own, but I mean, again, there's not much to say. We've been talking about this all month because I've been showing sneak peeks, right? I've been showing like the completed Jeep essay, which you have here, right? So you have the Jeep essay to take a look at here. You also have a past students paper. So if you click on this link, this is the Diet Coke person. So you can see her full essay here. So you have 2 sample essays you can look at. I love looking at examples. Sometimes this whole thing, ad analysis, doesn't really click until people see like finished products. So you do have 2 finished products to study, okay? And both papers are in APA format. So that's another thing too. If you're unsure about APA, you can always look at the 2 sample essays. But we're going to talk about APA format now, okay? Because again, I think there's not much to say about the essay draft assignments. We talked about the main things the first 2 weeks, right? What is ad analysis? We talked about what to look for in ad. We talked about thesis statements. We even talked about research and a little bit about APA last week. So this is why I devote the entire session to APA. Now, I have a blank Microsoft Word document already open. If you want to do so as well, excuse me, that might be convenient because you can just follow along as I go through the steps. So I'll give people a moment or two to do that. I'm using Microsoft Word for Mac. I imagine PC is pretty much identical. If you're using any other sort of program, you should be able to do all the steps that I'm going to walk through now, but you'll have to figure out how to do it on your own. So it's kind of best that you use Microsoft Word. There is a free version online called Microsoft OneDrive. I believe OneDrive doesn't have the full built-in tools as the I don't even know what you call them, like the tabs here. You might have to do it the old-fashioned way by going to the menu and choosing options. But yeah, there's a free version online. But as Full Sail students, you should all have Microsoft Word. So APA basically covers 3 things, right? So there's layout. This is how the paper looks. This is what we're going to cover first. And then there are in-text citations and references. So we're going to start first with layout. And we're going to begin by talking about how to create the header. Now, the header is this top inch of the page. And if you're using Microsoft Word, it's as simple as just double-clicking somewhere in this top inch. And then you're inside. Okay, and it automatically brings you to the header footer tab. And we have to type a couple things in here. Okay, first we have to type the words running head, colon, and then in all caps, the title of your paper goes here, okay? So the R in running is capitalized, not the H in head, although I think in my Jeep essay I accidentally capitalized the H in head. So yeah, I can make mistakes too sometimes. Okay, but we type the words running head, colon, and then in all caps, the full title of your paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. I recommend you doing the same, because in order to get everything that we need to appear correctly, it likes to make things disappear. I have no idea why. For instance, we also have to insert page numbers, including on this very first page. By the way, we're creating the cover page. Okay. We also have to what we're going to do is the words running head will appear on this very first page, the cover page, but not on all subsequent pages. So we have to do a little thing to make that happen, which is to click this right here, different first page, which means the running head is going to look slightly different on the first page than all others. And when I do that, it usually makes it disappear. See? So because I've already copied it, I'll just paste it back in there. And then we have to insert page numbers. We can go here and do it, or we can do it the old-fashioned way. Just go to Insert, Page Numbers. And yes, we want it to show up on the first page, so we'll click that little box. And yes, we want it in the top right corner, so it gives you a little visual where it's going to appear. Click OK. And yeah, this happens too, where no number appears. But then look what, see, now different first page has been unchecked. So let's check it again. And now things stick. We're going to have to come back here one more time, because when we go to fix subsequent pages, it's going to, but for now, at least, it looks good. We have to do one more thing. And this is kind of annoying, but the entire document, so this means the header, the cover page, the essay itself, the references, like the whole document has to be in Times New Roman, 12-point font. It doesn't automatically have it in that font. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to go to the Home tab, because this is where I get my main choices, such as changing the font style, and just change it. Okay, there. Good, we're done. Okay, we've got the header for now set up. So I just have to click outside of the header area. And we have to continue completing our cover page. So now what we need to do is go to approximately the middle of the page. You just have to eyeball it. We need to center vertically and horizontally. So I'll go there, I'll use the center tool. And here we have to type 3 things. Oh, there's one more thing I recommend doing right now, which is the entire document also needs to be double spaced. So why don't we go ahead and do that right now? So I'm going to change spacing, which is this little guy, the up and down arrows, from 1.0 to 2.0. Okay. And here we have to type 3 things. We have to type the title of our paper, but not in all caps. So title of paper goes here. Now you'll have your own title, of course. I'm just putting this as a placeholder. But yeah, here I'm following the standard rules of capitalizations. Little words like of, or if the word a or the appeared, I wouldn't capitalize that. But major words, yes. Okay. Hit enter. Here, your name goes here. Okay. So the student's name, because putting my name there might be confusing. Let me just put in a fake name, James Smith. Okay. And then the name of the institution you're associated with. So in other words, what school you attend. Full Sail University. Now, as you can see, I need to fix this, okay? So this is not Times New Roman. So yeah, you have to go into the header and the actual text of the essay itself. They're kind of separate. So, okay, good. And again, you just sort of eyeball it. So I'm going to see. That looks more or less right. Maybe it needs to be bumped down one more time. Okay, so yeah, just guesstimate to get it in the center of the page. Now I'm going to put my cursor right after the university, and I'm going to keep hitting enter until I get to the first line of a brand new page. As soon as I get there, I'm going to stop. So I'm almost there, there, stop. And as soon as we're on the brand new page, we are again going to type the title. I'm going to hit enter just once, okay? Just once, not twice, not 3 times, just once. And we can start typing our essay. Now the essay begins on the left side of the page, so I'll click the align left thingy. The first line of a new paragraph always needs to be indented, so I'm going to hit tab, and you can start typing your paper. Now I'm going to copy this because I want to fill up a whole bunch of space. When you get to the end of a sentence, obviously you put a period, right? Then you hit your spacebar twice. 1, 2. Keep going. And obviously, if you have double spacing set up already, and I know I'm telling a lot of people things they already know, but when you reach the end of a line, it automatically wraps around. I say this because sometimes students who aren't as comfortable with Microsoft Word try to force it to be double spaced. In other words, it's truly single spaced, but they kind of treat Microsoft Word like a typewriter. Yes, I'm old enough to remember typewriters. I was in the last high school class that actually used typewriters. The next year they switched to computers. So we had to learn things like when you get near the end of the page, you manually hit return twice hard to get double spacing. But if you do that on Microsoft Word, it does really strange things. Like it doesn't recognize what you're doing, so it will try to capitalize the first letter of every new line because it thinks you're starting a brand new sentence. So yeah, if you get double spacing set up to begin with, it will just wrap around. Now I'm going to take all of this because I want to fill up a whole bunch of space. Now, when you get to the end of a paragraph, like let's say it's the end of our introduction paragraph, you hit enter once, just once, not twice, not 3 times, just once. Hit tab to indent, and you keep going. Okay? Because sometimes what students do is they think it all looks too scrunched, so they put a space in here, they put a space in here, and they think that looks better. No, don't do that. Okay? Let's see. Where's my, do I have my Jeep essay at hand? Yes. Okay, so here's the Jeep essay. Right, so there's my cover page. There's page 2. And yeah, some things highlighted so they stand out more, like the thesis, the topic sentences. But as you can see, this is how a paper should look. And open up a novel sometime. You know, if you like the Harry Potter books or Twilight books, you don't see spaces, a lot of space between paragraphs. That's not standard. So even though it looks maybe scrunched to your eyes, it isn't. Okay. So here I'm going to fill up. Actually, let me take this. Let me do it like this. Hold on. I'm going to pretend we filled up several pages. Let me grab all of this. Okay. So we keep going. I'm going to try to fill up. Now, when you get to the end of the paper, let's say here's where the paper ends. Okay. This is our final paragraph. This is our 5th paragraph. We again hit enter until we get to the first line of a brand new page. As soon as we get there, we stop. Stop. And on this page, we center the word references. And note too that we don't bold the word references. Oops. Okay. We don't italicize it. We don't underline it. We don't put a colon after it. We don't call it works cited or bibliography or sources. It is just a simple, elegant word, references. This is sort of the beauty of APA, is that it is simple and consistent for the entire document. Okay. Now before we get into the other 2 aspects of APA, we need to fix one more thing. Remember I said that on the cover page, we want the words running ahead to appear because it's like an announcement. It's saying that this is going to be the header for all the pages, but it's supposed to disappear on subsequent pages. So we need to fix that. Just in case, I'm going to copy this. But yeah, we need to go in here and look, there's no page numbers. So we got to fix that as well. So we'll go into the header on page 2, get rid of this, insert page numbers again. That's the thing. You have to do steps sometimes a couple times in order to get things to stick, but eventually you should. Okay, so it's a little bit of a pain to have to redo these steps. But okay, so here we've got title, no words running head, page number. That looks good. And on the cover page, the words running head have probably disappeared. But watch. Now when I re-click for the 3rd time, different first page, it should come back. Boom. Does it every month. It's annoying, but okay. Now we got it. Running head, title, page number. All remaining pages, title without the words running head, page number. And if you can't get it to quite work and the words running ahead appear on every page, I won't make a big deal about that, okay? But yeah, sometimes you have to redo steps. Let's see. Anthony says it seems tedious. Yeah, it does. But here's the cool thing. Once you get it down, you got it down. The trickiest thing is that silly header. That's the only part that's a little bit tedious. The rest of it, I think, is actually quite simple. And once you have it set up, like if you've been following along with me so far, you can just start replacing this wording with your own. Okay, but you've got the overall layout because this is how your paper should look. But we have to cover two other things. Remember, layout is one of the three parts of APA. The other two are in-text citations and references. So let's practice in-text citations. Let's imagine that on page 2, okay, I'm going to go back to that article I found last week. Remember, I was talking about the Call of Duty ad? And I was specifically talking about the use of music in that ad. Remember, I said that could be an interesting thesis point, one of your 3 thesis points, because it uses the song Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. And why does it use that song? Yes, it's a famous song. It's well known. It's a classic rock song. Yes, it's upbeat and energetic. That's part of it. But lots of songs could do that. So why this song? And last week, I found an article that I'm going to use again this week. Okay. This one here, Gimme Sales. Remember last week I said that at first glance this doesn't seem terribly useful because it's really short, but that this information here could be like a secondary piece of evidence. Because although it isn't explaining why Gimme Shelter is appropriate for this ad, it does kind of offer, I don't know, tangential evidence, again, that they wanted this song. Clearly, if this guy, Tim Riley, the vice president of music affairs for Activision, flew to New York to get permission from the rights holders and also show the Rolling Stones, the band, an early version of the ad to get their approval. Clearly, they wanted this song. So why? This article doesn't answer that. But still, maybe it's arguable that you could still cite something from this. So, okay, last week I was saying that it was a little bit difficult in the time remaining in the week 2 lecture to cover this stuff because in-text citations and APA are sort of like those choose-your-own-adventure books. Do people still know what those are? Like you get to the end of a page and it says, if you wish to enter the castle, turn to page 15. If you don't enter the castle, turn to page 45. It's sort of like that, and that you always have 2 options for handling APA. Okay, you always have. There's no single way to handle an in-text citation. There are 2 different ways, and it all depends on 2 things. This is where it gets confusing. First, are you going to directly quote, like take actual words from the article, or are you going to paraphrase? Paraphrase means you say things completely in your own words, but because it's coming from research, you still need to cite it. And second, do you want to actually mention the author's name in your sentence, or is it not so important? So I'm going to show, first of all, I think paraphrasing is the best option here because I would argue there's nothing really that quote-worthy in here. That's another thing, is that sometimes students will take this whole thing and just drop it in the paper with quotations around it. And it's tempting because they think, wow, this says things better than I ever could. But that's not the purpose of quoting. Quoting is when you find wording that is so specific and so helpful that, yes, you want to quote it directly. And I think I mentioned this last week at all. You don't have to take whole sentences. You can take just a phrase or a clause. Here, I think paraphrasing is perfect because really what this paragraph is doing is telling a story, which I just explained, that this guy flew to New York to get permission from the rights holders and showed the Rolling Stones themselves a version of the ad to get their approval, right? Like I could say that in my own words. This isn't really quote worthy. So first, let's do that. Let's show how to handle a paraphrase. But still, whether we paraphrase or quote directly, we have to decide, are we going to mention the author's name or not? And what I mean by that is this. We could incorporate this information by doing this. According to Anne Donahue, and here's a rule. If you mention the author's name in your actual sentence, you immediately have to put the year in parentheses. It's just a rule. If that author's name appears in your sentence, the year has to appear. So according to Anne Donahue, and it's up to you. You can give more information if you want, like of Billboard magazine. And then I will paraphrase. Paraphrase means you're not borrowing any language. I mean, some things there's no other way to say it, like Activision Vice President of Music Affairs, right? That's his title. There's no other way to say that. But I can't just say, according to Tim Riley, obtaining Gimme Shelter for the ad was no small accomplishment, right? That's just me stealing the exact same wording and just changing occasional word. So I'm going to try my best to truly say things in my own words. So according to Ann Donahue of Billboard magazine, Tim Riley, the vice president of music affairs for Activision, flew to New York to obtain permission from the song's rights holders, even allowing the Rolling Stones themselves to view an early version of the ad and obtain their approval. Okay? I think I've said that in my own words. And guess what? We're done. That's it. Because for a paraphrase, as long as the author is listed and the year of publication is given, you're done. You don't have to list a page number or paragraph number because you're not quoting directly. Now, here's the thing. Let's say you don't have to mention the author's name in your sentence. And this is a little bit confusing because you might think, well, when should I mention the author's name in my sentence, or when shouldn't I? It's something you'll just have to feel. Like here, it's the writer from Billboard. Billboard's a pretty well-known magazine. Thus, as the writer, for me to mention, according to Ann Donahue of Billboard magazine, that feels like it has some weight to it. But if I were to write, according to Ann Donahue of blah, blah, blah.com, that might not sound so important, right? So just like trust your gut. Sometimes you can sort of feel that it's important to give credit in your sentence, and sometimes not. So I could have written this without mentioning her name. I could have just said, according to Billboard magazine, Tim Riley, the vice president of music affairs for Activision, flew to New York, so on, so on, so on. And at the very end, put author's last name, Donahue, comma, 2010. Okay? You see how that works? It's like you always have two choices. You can mention the author's name and year in your sentence, or not. But if you don't, you save everything for the end, right? So now I'm going to show a direct quote. Pretty much the same thing. The only difference is we have to include a page or paragraph number. Now, I think I mentioned this last week, but yeah, if you find a PDF file that's reproducing the exact pages of the journal or publication, there will be traditional page numbers. But lots of documents, like this one here, there are no page numbers because it's all on one page. So we have to count the paragraphs. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The information comes in paragraph 5. Now, I've already said that I think the best thing to do here is to paraphrase. But if I am going to quote something, maybe I would grab this, okay? For the first time in Activision history, it allowed another company to make edits to the ad itself in order to obtain approval, blah, 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 okay? So let's start over, but work on a quotation. So first, let's pretend we are going to mention the author's name. So according to Ann Donahue, and again, because her name appears in the sentence, we have to put the year immediately in parentheses. But we're asking Tim Riley, the vice president of music for Activision, flew to New York to obtain permission from the song's rights holders. And here, I'll put in my quotation. Hold on. I have to fix this. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. And excuse me. Let me highlight things so we can see things more clearly. Okay, so according to Ann Donahue, 2000, Tim Riley flew to New York to obtain permission, comma, and, quote, for the first time in Activision history, allowed another company to make edits to the ad itself in order. Yeah, that works. Okay. So see what I've done there? I didn't take the whole paragraph of information. I didn't even take a whole sentence. I just took a chunk of it and worked that chunk so it fits within my overall sentence. So the first half of the sentence is me, right? That's my language. And then the second half, I find this quotation. And if you read it from start to finish, it does read cleanly. Excuse me. Now, I've mentioned the author's name in my sentence, right? According to Ann Donahue. So a year has to appear, 2010. And the only thing we need at the end is a page or paragraph number. In this case, it appeared that quotation comes from paragraph 5. Notice a couple things. The period does not go here. Everybody thinks it does because that's the end of the sentence, right? No, the actual end of the sentence is the citation. Because if you do this, this means the sentence ends here. And oddly, the next sentence begins, paragraph 5, you can start. No, end punctuation always goes after the citation. Okay, so this is where things get confusing. So for paraphrasing, you do not need a page or paragraph number. For direct quotations, you do. And using my choose your own adventure analogy, you always have two ways to handle it, right? So here I've decided to split things up. The author's name is mentioned in my sentence, so I put a year, and then at the very end, a page or paragraph number. Now, I could have just found my own natural way to write things without mentioning the name. According to Billboard magazine, this guy flew to New York to obtain permission and, quote, for the first time in Activision history, allowed another company to make edits to the ad itself, blah, blah, blah. Here, because I haven't mentioned the author's name, I just put everything at the end. So author's last name, comma, year, comma, page or paragraph number. You see how that works? So this is what I think makes in-text citations a little bit confusing, because the rules are slightly different, whether you're directly quoting or paraphrasing, and you always have two options based on whether or not you're going to mention the author's name in your sentence. Okay. If you get confused, you can look at the two examples. So here, for example, here's a paraphrase. She's mentioning information from the Rose and O video. Okay, so there's his name, year, then she's done. Here, she mentions the author's name in her sentence. This is what advertising critic Gene Kilborn, so immediately year appears in parentheses, 2015, is referring to when she writes, quote, in the world of advertising, things are lovers and lovers are things, end quote. Then page 33, period. Okay, so you can see the two ways to do it. And the Jeep essay also has plenty of examples. Or you can go to projectapa.info and just go to in-text citations, the very first tab. And here it again shows you the two ways to incorporate a quotation. Mentioning the author's name, right? Then putting a year, then delivering the quotation, and then putting a page or paragraph number. Or just presenting the quotation and then saving everything for the end. I do wish they had shown how to incorporate a quotation instead of just dropping the quotation in. And same thing for paraphrases. Okay, mentioning the author's name or just saving it for the end. So if you get confused, turn to the Jeep paper, the Diet Coke paper, or projectapa.info. But that is how you handle in-text citations. Now, what do you do if you have like exceptions? Like, what if there's no author? No author, right? No author's name. The rule is to use the first 2 to 3 words of the article title. So this title is called Gimme Sales. So if there were no author, we would just put Gimme Sales. Okay. Or imagine that the title of the paper the article was The Road Ahead, The Road Behind. We could just put The Road or The Road Ahead. Okay. In quotation marks. So first 2 to 3 words of the article title, place in quotation marks. And notice that punctuation almost always goes inside the quotation marks. Okay. What if there's no date for the thing you're citing? Use the abbreviation N period D period, which stands for no date. Okay. So there are rules for if there's no author, use the first 2 to 3 words of the article title, put in quotation marks. If there's no date, use the abbreviation ND. And yeah, Project APA will also cover things like multiple authors, right? So if you have 2 authors, 3 authors, that happens sometimes. Just check the rule. So that's in-text citations. I hope that makes sense. It's always confusing. Once you get these things down, like I came to Full Sail knowing nothing about APA formats. I'd used MLA all my life. And now I can do APA in my sleep. I don't think it's very difficult at all. But yeah, at first blush, it seems like a bunch of random rules that seem to make no sense. But once you get it down, yeah, you can do it automatically. Like I'm used to, it doesn't even seem that strange to me that there would be two ways to handle an in-text citation based on whether you mention the author's name in your sentence or not. Okay, so the word references has gotten bumped down because I added more text to one of the earlier paragraphs. So let me go ahead and recenter that. Now we're going to create references. Now the cool thing about finding something in the Full Sail database is they'll give you the AP citation. Okay, for anything you find, you just go to the right side and you click on this little cite tool. And it will give you the MLA, AMA, APA, Chicago. It does make mistakes, but I'm going to go ahead and grab this anyway, just to show. And I'm going to put this on my references page. Same thing. I have the cursor after the word references. I'm going to hit enter just once. Just once. And again, we start on the left side of the page. I'm going to paste in my reference. This little clipboard. If I click match destination formatting, it will automatically put it in Times New Roman, double spaced. Now, there's a couple mistakes here. First, author's name should not be in all caps. The automatic citation tool and any citation tools online love to do this, so we need to fix that. Okay. Also, there's a very goofy rule for APA, and it only applies to the references page. Okay, but you capitalize article titles just as you would a regular sentence. So the G in gimme gets capitalized because it's like the first word of a sentence, but not the S in sales. Okay, very rarely does the citation generator get that right. The rest of it looks good though. There's one other thing we need to fix, which is if you look at paragraphs, right? So we indent the first sentence of a new paragraph, but not the other lines. For references, it's the opposite. We do not indent the first line, but if it goes to a second, third, fourth line, etc., we do indent those. So I'm going to put my cursor in front of the second line and drag the bottom half of this hourglass over half an inch. There. Boom. There's a reference. Now I'm going to do a quick search. Call of Duty Black Ops. Gimme shelter. I'm just going to grab anything because it doesn't matter the quality of the article. Well, this is Billboard again. Let's see. I said I didn't care which article, but I don't like some of these. I'm trying to find like here, PC Gamer. Okay, that's a pretty well-known publication. So let's say if you find something online, you have all the information you need. Like here, we have an author's name, we have a date, we have an article title. We've got everything we need. So I am going to copy the article title. And let me, here's the thing, even without a generator, I'll show you how simple it is. Okay, so author's last name, senior, comma, first initial, T, Tom, and then the date. This was 2010, November 1st. If something is published not that often, like it's published once a month or every quarter, you just put a year. If something is published quite frequently, like a newspaper typically publishes daily, or websites publish content frequently, a more specific date is better. So, but if you do include the full date, it's always year, comma, full name within a month. So not NOV period. No, the full name spelled out, and then the date, and no things like first. No, just the number. Okay. So author's last name, first initial, date. Then comes the article title. I'll fix that. Match destination formatting. Yeah, we got to lose this bolding. Now we're in luck. They've actually, almost by accident, or maybe they were following APA format, I don't know, but the capitalization is correct. Right? This has been capitalized just as you would a regular sentence. Okay, so Call of Duty Black Ops would be capitalized because it's the name of a game. Okay, it's a proper noun. But everything else is perfect. Then the name of the publication, italicized. So what was it? PC Gamer. And then retrieved from. You always need to retrieve from. And there's no colon after it. I see that a lot too. retrieve from. In this case, we just grab the URL, okay, the web address. Now, I hate it when it makes the link active, so let me get rid of that. Remove hyperlink. Okay. But that's how simple it is. Okay. Like I could just make something up off the top of my head, like Jones, Mary, 2012, March 15th. Title of article, oops, goes here, period. Right. Now, if you look at this stuff here, which looks a little bit strange, that's actually volume, issue, page number information. You're probably not going to have to deal with it unless it comes from a journal found through the library database. And if it's found through the library database, you should be able to use the citation tool. But if you, yeah, this is volume, issue, page number information. Okay. Then publication name gets italicized, retrieved from. Okay. So, I mean, it's that simple. Now, if there is no author's name, then you begin with the title of the article. That goes first, then the date, then everything else just as you normally would. If there is no date, same rules for in-text citations. You just use the abbreviation N period, D period. Okay, so there are rules to handle these things as well, and they can be found, again, through projectapa.info, which I don't think I have open anymore, but there's a whole tool section there for references. But yeah, you've seen, and you have the Jeep essay and the Diet Coke essay, so you can always study the references there and just imitate. Here, let me make up one more. So like Johnson. Remember that made up title I made before? The road ahead, road behind? Like in MLA, you would do this. The road ahead, the road behind. But not in APA. All this stuff gets put lowercase. Actually, let's look at the Jeep essay, right? So that's why the Jeep essay, people might even think it looks strange because they're not used to seeing lowercase, because we're so hammered home, right? The rule in MLA that we capitalize important words, not make them lowercase. But this, and it only applies to the references page. Like if you were to mention this full title in the text of your actual essay, you would capitalize these letters and you would put the entire article in quotation marks. It's just, yeah, these are the idiosyncratic rules of APA that drive people crazy. Why is it that only on the references page we do not put the article title in quotation marks and we do not capitalize major words? I don't know. That's just how it works. But same thing here. You can see that you are supposed to capitalize the first letter after a colon, even though you wouldn't in a normal sentence. I think it's because this is like a secondary, almost like a subtitle. In here, Jeep is not capitalized because it's not referring to the brand Jeep. It's referring to the style of vehicle. Same thing here. Okay, but here it is talking about the Jeep brand. So the J in Jeep gets capitalized. Okay, so if like a person's name, like Trudy, or day of the week, like Thursday, were to appear in the title, you would capitalize those because you would capitalize those in a normal sentence. And here, the industry's most copied brand, except for the T in the very first word, everything else is lowercase. So if you can remember that really, really goofy spelling rule, or excuse me, capitalization rule, you'll impress me, because almost no one remembers to do that on the references page. So if you want to show off, that would be awesome. And note too that, yeah, you arrange things alphabetically. Okay. So actually, where's my, if this was true that there was no article, no author, this would have to get moved. Because, yeah, even though there's no author, still the T makes it come after S, J, and D. Okay. So questions, comments. This is really what I wanted to go over today. just a real-time walkthrough of APA. We've covered layout, we've covered in-text citations, we've covered references. If you don't have any questions, if you're crystal clear with what we've gone over, I thank you for attending. I'm not going to force you to stay here. This was a little bit shorter. That's good, right? Because I had less to go over. Next week will be even shorter than this because, yeah, week 4, there's not much to go over. So you can look forward to that. So if you are clear with what we've covered, you can feel free to enjoy the rest of your night. I'll hang out a bit and answer questions if you have them. Do I have that right? PC gamer. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.